Hello there, EFD squad, and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics from across the continent. I've got scorching header this week, but we've also got some scorching topics. One of the questions is, if you were the Barca hierarchy, who would you spend that Neymar money on? We're also going to discuss Huddersfield, the Barcelona, the Yorkshire. And last but not least, we're going to discuss youngsters and forcing through transfers. And that comes from a Twitter user. So you'll get your shout out in due time, my friend. Joseph, I'm going to come to you first.
Do it.
Now, I put a rule in this question.
Go on.
You have 180 million of that 220 million euros left to spend after the Paulinho transfer. 50 of it has to be put aside for the new stadium. So who do you spend the subsequent 130 million pounds on?
It's a difficult one because 150 million pounds doesn't get Barcelona much, I don't think.
No.
Because people just price them up, keep pricing them up. You've seen it with Liverpool and Coutinho, haven't you? They're apparently going to bid 130 million for him, and that's going to be rejected as well. He's just not going to go now, Coutinho. It's just a flat no. It's too late in the window. The FSG are making a very clear statement.
Well, now you've put him in your dream team. I reckon that's
exactly.
You harbour those ambitions, certainly.
Fingers crossed, he says. I would go for Ousmane Dembele.
Yeah,
I think
it's a sensible option.
The most like-for-like replacement you're going to find. Yep. Very young, massive ceiling. It's only getting better with each passing season at Borussia Dortmund. Dribbling statistics off the charts. I think in the right team with the right players around him, he's a future Ballon d'Or winner. But he's not at Neymar's level yet. I think replacing Neymar is impossible to do.
But do you think Barca have themselves out of a move for Ousmane Dembele because Hans-Joachim Watzke has said the chances of getting him are now less than 50% because of the way they approached him? Obviously, afterwards, after they had discussions with Barca, refused to go to training. They think you might have whispered, someone might have whispered something in his ear.
I'm not too sure. I think that's Watzke coming out and saving a little bit of Borussia Dortmund face and saying, oh, well, Barcelona have been tapping him up behind the scenes, haven't they? I think that happens with pretty much every single transfer in the world, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Personally, I think Dembele is the best fit. Do I think they'll get him? No, I think Dortmund, if we go by these rules, will price him out again. I just don't see it happening. I don't see Dembele in a Barcelona shirt for 130 million pounds. I think that they'll just keep running the price up. And let's face it, if you're Dembele, you're not desperate to move to Barcelona this year. I think he can have another big year and still get a move to Barcelona next year. It's not like Barcelona are signing every world beater under the sun. They're struggling to get players through the door. Let's face it.
What about you, Pato? Given those rules?
Well, in a way, Barcelona, you're right that they can wait and go for Dembele next year, and of course somebody like Naby Keita will be available at a cheaper price next year. That would help them too.
Where's the Pato Naby Keita bong? Bong!
But this is the thing. I mean, in a way, I get the rule where you've got to say, they're putting money aside for the stadium, but they're also going to save money on wages. Anyone they sign, they're not going to pay the same amount that they were paying Neymar. And Joe's also right, as much as it pains me to say it, in that you can't replace Neymar with one guy. You're going to have to do it with more than one. Yeah. So I would definitely go for Dembele, and if I had a little bit more money, I'd also go for Lorenzo Insigne, I think.
Oh!
I don't think they're going to get Coutinho.
Left field shout.
And also, I'm not sure that he's worth the amount that's being talked about. I think he's an excellent player, but is he really worth that much more than, say, than somebody like Insigne, who I think is a great creator? He can play on the left side of an attack. He can play as an attacking midfielder. He's very fast. He got 18 goals in Serie A last season. I think he got something like 9 assists.
Yeah,
as well.
only forward to breach 2,000 passes as well, wasn't he? So he likes to be involved in play, much like Neymar.
Which feels perfect for Barcelona's system. The fact that he can play in the wide positions, the fact he can play as a number 10, I mean, this is a really helpful thing when you think that they've got to not only place Neymar, but also plan for Iniesta's eventual departure through retirement, presumably. So I don't think they're going to get Eriksen, I don't think they're going to get Coutinho, and in that case, the next best guy is definitely Insigne. So he's who I'd be looking at. And while Napoli will play hardball, they can't afford to say no to the sorts of money that the Premier League clubs can, and Dortmund can when they know that they've got a genuine Ballon d'Or contender.
Yeah, Sarri has got the best out of the likes of Insigne and the wee man up front from Belgium. Yeah. Dries Mertens, hasn't he? I think they'll do well to keep hold of that forward trio this season. I actually thought they were going to go for the sensible option in Sarri from Nice. That move looks to have collapsed now, right before we came in to film
Mundo
this.
Deportivo put out an article saying it's done. 10 minutes later, updated, saying it's collapsed.
I thought they were going to sign him for 36 million. Xavi Hernandez said he had Barca DNA. He has all the trappings of a good central playmaker, doesn't he? Especially a more advanced one. Last season, 34 appearances, 7 goals, 9 assists. He was averaging 2 key passes a game. He had a 90% pass accuracy, involved in 84 passes a game. So much more involved than Neymar in general build-up play, but not as decisive in the final third, obviously. But again, I thought that was sensible from them. 36 million, not a huge fee for him.
I didn't really like
now,
this.
according to Sky Sports, really?
No.
I'll come back to that in a minute. But according to Sky Sports and, Guillaume Balaguer and the hackers who broke into Barcelona's social media, apparently their heads have now turned firmly in the direction of Angel Di Maria. Now, obviously, he had an exceptional first season in Paris, 28 goals he contributed to, that's goals and assists. Now last season that fell to 13, he didn't have the greatest of starts, did he? I think he only scored 1 in his first 10, 11 games. And RAC have said PSG want 40 million euros for him, which is a fair price despite him being 29. He's obviously 7-8 years the senior of someone like Dembele. But, at the height of his powers in La Liga, this guy was creating 2.6 chances per game, completing 2 take-ons, completing nearly 4 long balls, and 2.1 crosses. So if they can get him back to that form, maybe a savvy acquisition. But why, Pato, don't you like the Seri transfer? I thought it was sensible. If uninspiring.
You were the guy who was talking a couple of weeks ago about football as a weak link sport, where you want to improve the weakest member of your team first. And actually, I think that whilst Iniesta's getting old, whilst Rakitic isn't as good as he was in that treble-winning season, whilst Rafinha hasn't yet set the Camp Nou alight, I think the Deulofeu out on the wing is clearly the weakest part of that 11 at the moment.
And left back as well. I'm not convinced by Jordi Alba.
Yeah, I agree.
But Jory's still out on this, and Semedo as well.
But he's a new signing though, and I think Semedo would be pretty good. The issue is more, I think, that they've won Champions Leagues with Jordi Alba, they've won Champions Leagues with Rakitic and Iniesta, but that wing is such an issue for them. There were so many times when I've watched them at the beginning of the season where they look out to that left wing expecting to see a dangerous player there, and instead they find Gerard Deulofeu.
Against Real Betis, I think they finished the game with a forward 3 of Denis Suarez, Messi and Alexis Vidal.
Which is why I was going to say, I think they've gone for the wrong man at Liverpool. I think Sadio Mane would have been a great fit for Barcelona. Lightning pace on the counter-attack. I think he's really, really underrated in terms of finishing ability. I think he would have been a great option, and he would have cost less than Philippe Coutinho would have. He just would have.
That would have been interesting.
And a move for Seri, I suppose, would also make more of a mockery of that move for Paulinho, and because they're signing 2 central players. I know Paulinho's a little bit more box-to-box. Seri does very little in terms of defensive work, doesn't he?
And he's not very press resistant either, which is going to be a problem when they get to the latter stages of the Champions League.
Their team shape at the start of the season has been horrible. But what about Draxler as an outside shout for the same price as Di Maria?
Draxler concerns me. I'm worried by Draxler. He's had too many moves for his age. There's a problem there. There's got to be a problem.
He's had 1 move.
He hasn't. He's had Wolfsburg, Schalke, and now PSG.
Oh, you're right. He did go to Wolfsburg. I forgot about that one.
That's a concerning amount of moves for a player that's 23 or 22 years old.
I think he's been done over a little bit here with PSG, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he's not done badly at all in his 6 months at the club, and already surplus the requirements because of Neymar. He's being replaced by Neymar. You can't hold that against him.
100%. But equally, I think he's a mile off where they need to be looking at a replacement of that left wing spot.
Yeah, I would have quite liked it if they'd gone for if they thought a little bit more and said, maybe we'll go for someone like Martial or whatever. I know we're going to get comments. People saying he's not good enough, but he's very fast. He's got great technical ability. He can create. He can score goals. He's extremely young, and that's what Barcelona need to do now. They need to say, you know what, we're not going to beat Real Madrid next year. Probably we might not even beat them the year after, but we've got a plan for the years after that.
Well, talking about planning, Messi's on a Bosman in January. So's Iniesta. Neither of them have signed new contracts. Both available on a free next summer. So you better start planning quickly. Yeah,
the hierarchy at Barca are having a mare. But who would you guys spend the money on? Given my rules, let us know in the comments below. Next question comes from Igor Lishenko on my Twitter feed, and he's asked, can Huddersfield repeat Leicester's fairy tale success? Now, I think I speak for all of us when I say that'd be a very tall order, but Huddersfield are an interesting side. No one expected this really good start. So, I suppose the slightly more interesting question is, how are they doing so well at this point? Now, a bit of background on David Wagner, their manager. He's stuck with the same tactics already at the start of the season, hasn't he, that led them out of the Championship. That's a high pressing, high energy sort of ethos with a lot of channeled aggression with Aaron Moy at the epicentre. I know you're going to talk about him in a little bit. And he's an interesting character for me. He was Dortmund's second team manager for 4 years between 2011 and 2015, so he's obviously taken elements of Klopp's game and incorporated it at Huddersfield, maybe in a bit more of a pragmatic kind of way. And when he came to Huddersfield, he wasn't afraid to make changes. He signed 13 players in his first season. And he actually took them on a bonding trip to Sweden, where he gave them the mere basics to survive in harsh conditions. And a lot of his team have actually said that's the reason they get on so well. That trip to Sweden at the start of his tenure. I mean, that could just be all hearsay. But what do you guys... Let's touch briefly upon them. What do you guys think of Huddersfield?
They're an exciting team to watch. I think they've started the season well because they are all-out attack. That is Huddersfield's game. They are going to blow some teams away and get absolutely pumped by some teams this season, I think it's fair to say.
They couldn't have played two better sides.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, Palace, horrendous first game. And Newcastle, still really look like a Championship team, that Newcastle side. If I look at that Newcastle squad, I think it's bang average.
Benitez isn't happy with his transfers, is he?
At all. Huddersfield themselves, like I said, attacking-wise, the addition of Mounier is an exciting one. I think he only scored 4 less goals than Mbappe last season in League 1, 22 years old. A big aerial threat. I actually think, I read a statistic, don't quote me on this, but I think he scored the 5th most headed goals in the entirety of Europe last season.
Yeah,
which
probably
is impressive.
outmatched by what Giroud and Benteke. And,
and
good skill to have in the Prem.
What I think that shows you is that Wagner is going to go with, I don't want to say a target man and 2 wingers that are going to attack, but effectively...
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That is what I'm saying, basically. But the reason they've started so well is because they've played dog opposition.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to say.
Still yet to concede.
But equally, I can't remember who you were talking about the other day in the office, Pato. It was a team in Spain, was it, who went for the route of, I don't care about draws.
Oh, Rayo Vallecano.
Yeah,
Rayo
I think
Vallecano.
that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, because they basically said that the draws were worth very little to them. You know, that you don't stay up, but you can draw every game and still go down. Yeah. So what they did was they didn't play conservatively. They played a kind of a possession style, like a really attractive attacking style, and it meant that they got absolutely battered, but they also produced some amazing results. I mean, Huddersfield already play football like a Premier League team. Quite often we see teams come up, like Burnley, for instance, who have a style that seems very specific to the Championship, you know? And that often means that there's a difficult transition between the two leagues. Burnley have managed to stay up, but of course they went down the first time they came up. Huddersfield, on the other hand, like you say, they play a kind of modern style.
True.
They've added some good talent. They've got a good manager. And it's a good thing they've done that, because when they came up, I think they came up with a -3 goal difference.
They did, indeed.
So you look at them and you think, maybe they were a little bit lucky to make it up this season. But they've improved really, really well. I think, like you say, they've played easy opposition to start with. Plus, the fact that they haven't been behind has helped. I mean, Man United, this is a similar point here. Okay, what you're seeing at the moment is you're seeing how Man United play when they're level and when they're ahead. And similarly, we're seeing the same thing with Huddersfield. The question will be, when they go a goal down, can they continue to play in a similar style? Against Palace, they got loads of opportunities on the break because they were a goal up. And score effects really do have a big pronounced result on the game. So I think that it will be intriguing to see what happens when Huddersfield go behind and when they play a bigger side, when they adjust their tactics.
I think as well, just watching them through the playoffs, they obviously didn't score an open play goal in the playoffs. And they went through on penalties, didn't they? And I watched that playoff final. I was actually at Wembley, and their midfield man, for me, on the day their best player was Izzy Brown, the Chelsea loanee. And technically on the ball, he was absolutely phenomenal. Now, they lost him this summer, didn't they? He didn't rejoin on loan, and I think there was a bit of a concern who's going to fill that midfield void. But Moy seems to have stepped up to the plate in a big way.
Yeah, obviously signed him on a permanent from Manchester City for 10.5 million, and I think a few clubs will be looking at him now and going, that is an absolute steal, especially in the lower echelons of the Premier League.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's not young either. I mean, like
26, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm not saying he's old, but but in a way he's got a bit more physicality. He's got a bit more experience.
He's peaked a little bit late. I mean, he came over from Australia quite late, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he only joined Man City, not this summer just gone, but the one before that, and then went on loan to the Championship.
He is the hub of that side, isn't he? Completing around 6 passes a game, creating around 2 chances. Obviously, scored a stunning goal to secure them a victory. Was that against Newcastle?
Yeah,
or
it was
Palace?
against Newcastle.
The mind boggles. But he also takes corners for them and is an absolute snippet on fantasy football. Get involved. But guys, why do you think Huddersfield have done so well, and will they avoid the drop? Let us know in the comments below. Final question comes from Sari Morrison on Twitter, and he said, you should talk about young players causing problems to force transfers. Now, we've had some high-profile accounts of that this season, haven't we? Dembele went AWOL from training and actually got into a bit of a scrap with Ruggie. Is it?
Yeah, I think it is Rugi.
Terrible centre-back. Very veiny calves as well. Dembele also went AWOL from training, has subsequently been suspended indefinitely, missing their first game of the season in the Bundesliga. And Mbappe's only played 75 minutes of football this season after the sort of that move to PSG. The rumours have gathered a bit of momentum, haven't they? There's also Davinson Sanchez, who I almost completely forgot. He refused to play for Ajax as well.
Yeah, he's in the
After
reserve squad,
Spurs, his first bid was rejected. Pato, I know you're in favour of player power. So what is your stance on this? I'm guessing it's going to be erring to the side of the individual.
I think that we only ever see criticism of players making trouble when they're doing it at your club. So, for instance, there are a bunch of Liverpool fans who are complaining about Coutinho making trouble for Klopp because he wants to go to Barcelona. But I noticed that they were all delighted when Naby Keita was kicking up a fuss in RB Leipzig training.
And Van Dijk at Southampton.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that this is all a little bit sour
Dog eat dog,
grapes
is that what you're
usually.
saying?
Well, it's just a double standard. I mean, people only care when it doesn't benefit them. Basically, I think that we're moving towards a system where players have more power. That's the way we've been going for the last 20 years since the Bosman ruling. I think that probably players will sign shorter contracts. That'll be more of an issue. I do think that if you've got a contract, you should still turn up to training and you should behave professionally. But on the other hand, these things often work. You know, we've seen players kick up a fuss before. Cesc Fabregas did it, Gareth Bale did it, and they got the moves they wanted.
If this was happening in business, you'd probably just describe it as a ruthless acumen, wouldn't you? If you were after more money, a bigger move. But do some of these players owe their club a degree of loyalty? Now, of the ones we've mentioned, Mbappe's been at Monaco since he was a kid, hasn't he? He's come through Clairefontaine Academy. He's gone through every age group. Should he be more welcoming of their request for him to stay maybe another year before he secures a big money transfer? I know the likes of Sanchez came from Colombia, and Dembele probably owes Dortmund far less.
Yeah.
But I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Should loyalty come into it? Or is that
to an extent, but equally you look at, like you said, Dembele owes Dortmund nothing. Rennes were the ones that developed him. They sold him to Dortmund. He's only been there a season. What does he really owe BVB? Not much. You look at the same could be said of Davinson Sanchez coming from Colombia to Ajax. Did he see Ajax as anything other than a stepping stone? I highly doubt it. But my one problem is at the moment with young players having too much sense of entitlement. They all think they deserve a start. My best example of this is not just them, but people on social media in particular. Talking about Anthony Martial. Let's use Anthony Martial as a case in point here. At the start of the season, if you'd have asked every Man United fan, should Anthony Martial start on social media? I reckon 80+% of them goes, yeah, Anthony Martial has to. Why has Anthony Martial got to start in that Man United team? He is owed nothing by Man United. Last season, his contribution was average at best. And every Man United fan on Twitter will go, well, he's got to start, he's got to start. Why has he got to start? He's done nothing. He hasn't proved himself. There's also a problem at the moment with everybody saying that they can't come off the bench. Young players need to be starting every single game. I put out a tweet the other day about Man United potentially signing Neymar as a left winger. And they said, well, what would that mean for Rashford and Martial? They'd be on the bench. Well, yeah, they would be on the bench, potentially.
Hold on, you were feuding on Twitter?
Yeah, I was feuding on Twitter, as I always do. But I don't have a problem with young players being put on the bench and then having to make an impact off it. I think that's what Zidane has built a whole system around. You look at the likes of Asensio. Asensio's so hungry now for game time, coming off the bench and proving himself, that has caused positive competition within the squad. I think just saying, oh, Martial has to start all the time because he's a young, fashionable player, stresses me out.
So it's people's opinions that are stressing you out?
Yeah, people's
opinions are like arseholes, mate. Everyone has one and they normally stink.
Yeah, true, very true. But equally, now the players seem to be developing that thought process. I'm 19.
Are you saying that social media is...
not just social media, agents as well, overinflating their ego, the press, us. We're all a problem.
This channel.
Yeah, this channel as well. But equally, that is starting to feed into players' mentality of 18, 19-year-olds who've had 3 good games going, I should be starting in this.
But this kind of backs up my point, though, which is that, to go back to what you said, players don't really owe the club anything because the clubs also don't owe the players anything. You know, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Man United don't need to pay Martial unless they think that he's good enough that he's going to contribute to positive results. Similarly, Martial doesn't owe Man United anything beyond doing his job for the length of time that he has a contract with them. I think that turning up to training, you should always do that. I think that they should always make themselves available for selection. I don't think they should go AWOL. However, they don't owe the club anything because the club would cut them in a heartbeat. And let's be honest, the club is going to be there for a long time. These clubs appreciate value even when they post financial losses. Man United is now worth $3.5 billion. Whereas Anthony Martial has an extremely limited window to earn as much money as he can to last him the rest of his career.
Yeah.
He could break his leg tomorrow and his career could be over. So I think that players should actually be out for as much as they can get while they can get it, because they've got families to think about. And you know what, whether Man United fans are going to be pissed off if Anthony Martial tries to get a move, shouldn't really come into it. He's got more important things.
Very quickly though, does commitment and loyalty foster a better sort of team spirit?
To the what? To the club, to the manager, to your teammates? It's difficult to say.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of variables, but the loyal players, loyal players don't necessarily improve results, do they? But at the top level, like Fergie with his siege mentality, and he had youngsters coming through, and the likes of Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs didn't even have an agent and whatnot. I'm sure it benefited him probably more so than the player, but.
Well, you can say at the moment
just
very clearly, positivity in the group and a very strong team spirit is probably number one at the moment. It seems you look at the most successful team in the world. Zinedine Zidane has built that ethos at the club.
Or is it just winning that's conducive to the best?
Yeah,
team?
both.
It helps, doesn't
it's
it?
both.
Do you remember when
I think
you mentioned to me, Flintoff said that being a captain is 100% overrated in sport.
Yeah.
And that it's just winning and momentum.
Momentum is the key. Momentum is the key.
But what do you guys think? Should young players be more loyal, or are they entitled to ask for this, that and the other? Let us know in the comments below. So that was this week's Continental Club, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. And as ever, get your topics to us on Twitter, Instagram and in the comments. Joseph, what should they do on FD right now?
Why don't they check us 3 out on the 12th Man, our weekend preview and fantasy football show. Plenty of giveaways over there as well.
Yeah, they should also get their tips to us for that, because currently we are getting battered by everybody in our fantasy league.
And obviously whoever gets the highest amount of points per week, not just in total, wins a prize.
Yes.
So you can enter at any given point. Guys, if you've not already, like and subscribe. What are you doing with yourselves?
Bye.